There's been a lot of news and controversy surrounding Marvel Comics this week. I bet they wish they weren't getting lambasted over the ASM 26 spoilers, but they also announced a new creative team taking over for Daredevil in the not too distant future. And I must say, this has to be the biggest downgrade in creative that I've seen in quite some time. Chip Zdarsky has been the writer on Daredevil for several years now. In fact, they even rebooted the series with Chip Zdarsky as the writer. So we got 2 number 1 issues, but they also kept the exact same artist. Marco Checchetto has been with Chip Zdarsky the entire time that he's been on Daredevil. They've actually done some really good stuff. There was a time for maybe like 12, 14 months or something like that, where I thought Daredevil was easily the best ongoing series Marvel Comics were putting out. Hell, I thought it was the best series in all of comics. They were beating DC as well. They ended up getting up to like the Devil's Reign event that was written by Chip Zdarsky. It was fine. It was actually pretty good. Compared to other Marvel Comics events that we've had in the last 3 or 4 years, it was actually really good. Didn't feel like the series needed to go on after that. Although at that point, they had made Elektra another Daredevil. Like Daredevil was in prison during that first part of the run. Elektra became Daredevil, and then when he came back, she just stayed as Daredevil. So they were the Daredevils, which I thought was kind of stupid. It should have ended in Devil's Reign. It didn't. And then they picked it up, they relaunched it, same creative team, and it just didn't have the juice anymore. You know what I mean? It was definitely great in the beginning, but it definitely feels like it's run its course, and it's probably due for a new creative team. But I have no idea what Marvel Comics were thinking with this one. After teasing out the end of writer Chip Zdarsky and artist Marco Checchetto's current Daredevil run, Marvel Comics has announced that writer Saladin Ahmed and artist Aaron Kuder will take over on a new volume of the title starting in September. Zdarsky and Checchetto's Daredevil will come to a close with August Daredevil number 14, followed immediately by the launch of Ahmed and Kuder's new Daredevil number 1 in September. They're replacing Chip Zdarsky, the guy that wrote the best issue of Spider-Man in the last 10 years, the guy that's writing Batman right now, and actually had a decent event at Marvel Comics, which feels unheard of within the last 2 or 3 years, with Saladin Ahmed. It's hard to put into words just how enormous this particular downgrade in creative talent actually is. Ahmed is not the worst writer ever. Like, he's not as bad as Tini Howard. He's not as bad as Steve Orlando. He's not as bad as Megan Fitzmartin. But he's not much better either. And with a character like Daredevil, who you can get good sales on, if you have a good creative team, this basically spells death for the series. Like, they're going to have to cancel it in less than a year, unless they just decide to keep it going for no reason and not actually sell it in comic books. Saladin Ahmed he doesn't have an audience. There is no fan base for his writing. He sat on Miles Morales for years and did nothing. He sat on Miss Marvel for years and did nothing. When he was done with her, they actually just had to put the series on hiatus for like a couple of years. It sounds like we're probably going to get a reboot soon, but everything this guy touches it doesn't turn to crap. It just turns to boring. He doesn't really know how to write good, interesting, high-quality, action-based comic book stories. And I'm not saying Chip Zdarsky is the best. After reading his Batman stuff and the end of his Daredevil run, I think I might be overselling that one quite a bit. Zdarsky has some really good stories in him, but he's also got some really bad, cringy stories to tell as well. And every time the guy does an interview, he comes off as an idiot. So I don't think you can ever expect Chip Zdarsky to become like a really big deal in comic books. I don't think anyone's ever going to go, wow, remember Chip Zdarsky's Batman run? That was great. I think they're going to be like, man, remember when Chip Zdarsky left Batman and we were all happy about it? Like, I think that's kind of who he's destined to be. But he looks like Alan Moore in comparison to Saladin Ahmed. I don't think Saladin Ahmed will ever write anything 50% as good as the first 12 issues of this Daredevil run. So this is an enormous downgrade. You know, I feel bad for Daredevil fans. I'm a Daredevil fan myself. Like, my favorite Marvel Comics hero is actually Nightcrawler, but number 2 is easily Daredevil. And Daredevil has a great history, so many great stories, because they always put kind of like an up-and-coming writer on the character, other than when they put like Mark Waid on it and absolutely sucked. But, you know, Saladin Ahmed's not up and coming. He's a never will be, and putting him on a character like Daredevil is just wasting an opportunity for a younger writer that actually has stories to tell that people might want to read. This should be their big opportunity, their big break at Marvel Comics. Instead, they're going to let somebody just squat on the title. And then, you know, Aaron Kuder coming in as the artist. Aaron Kuder's a pretty okay artist. I like him on horror stuff. But Daredevil's not really a horror character. And Marco Checchetto is awesome. He's one of the best artists in comic books, period, right now. So I feel bad for Aaron Kuder for not being a bad artist. He's going to look like shit compared to Marco Checchetto. Remember when Mike Hawthorne was the other artist kind of helping out Marco Checchetto, and they had the same art like in the same book? It made Mike Hawthorne look like he had zero talent as an artist. You know, he's not that bad an artist. I would say he's better than Aaron Kuder. So the only good thing is Aaron Kuder won't be like sitting next to Marco Checchetto like in the comic book, which would make it 100 times worse. But, you know, it's just a huge downgrade across the board. When asked what he'll miss most about writing Daredevil, Chip Zdarsky said, working with Marco, honestly, and Matt Wilson on colors. It was such a joy having those pages come in almost every day. It feels like the right time to leave. You know, when you finish the story, it's kind of when you get off the stage. It's my longest run on anything in comics, and it will probably end up being my longest running anything in comics because of the kind of character that you just want to hold on to for as long as you can. I kind of agree with him. It is the right time to leave. I do feel bad that Marco Checchetto isn't considered like a superstar yet. I can't believe that Mark Millar hasn't like reached out to the guy and hired him away from Marvel yet. That's what I would do because this dude has so much talent, it's not even funny. He's not the fastest artist in the world, but if you're releasing stories in like 4 and 5 issue miniseries like Mark Millar is doing, like Marco Checchetto is one of the guys that you would want to have outside of like a Pepe Larraz, a Jorge Jimenez, a Frank Quietly, Tavis Cheris, and all the other great artists that he's been working with lately. So hopefully he does get that opportunity because Marco's such a great artist. But he should be like a household name within the comic book fandom now, just for what he did on this series. If you don't like Daredevil, actually go check out that Old Man Hawkeye series. He illustrates the first 6 issues of that, and those are amazing as well. So it's too bad that Marco Checchetto didn't end up getting the notoriety that he deserved out of this series. He deserves way bigger and better things, but obviously this did up the profile of Chip Zdarsky. I don't believe Chip Zdarsky gets the DC Comics Batman writing gig, you know, the flagship character, without the quality that was in this Daredevil run. And we'll see if he's able to turn Batman around, but it's not in a very good place right now. So, you know, I hate to see it go, but it's the right time. Once he decided to make Elektra Daredevil, and then when real Daredevil came back, she stayed as Daredevil, it was like, this is getting beyond stupid, and it probably went on for about a year too long. And in my opinion, probably wasted some of the prime years of Marco Checchetto's illustrating life. But, you know, that's too bad. Saladin Ahmed, even the worst stuff that Chip Zdarsky did, Saladin Ahmed will not be able to touch. Let's just put it that way. He is the most boring vanilla comic book writer that Marvel Comics has these days. There was another series I will touch on here. It's not really Daredevil, but if you're a Thor fan, following the acclaimed Immortal Hulk, fans won't want to miss this new story of Immortal Thor. When injustice grips the earth and ancient powers bring down the sky, he fights for those who cannot. And when the tale is done, we will know what that cost him. Immortal Thor will be written by Al Ewing and illustrated by Martin Kokolo. When Polygon asked what he can share about the solicit, Al Ewing said, doors are indeed opening, buried secrets are awaiting to be unearthed, and ancient gods, elder gods, if you will, are coming to bring trial and sorrow to Earth, Asgard, and Thor personally. And he's going to need to be his absolute highest self to face them. And even then, he might not make it through. The omens are sinister. The storm is at the gate. He might not make it through. It's called Immortal Thor. That means he can't die. What are you talking about, Al Ewing? My goodness, man, keep your story straight. You know, Al Ewing isn't the worst writer in the world. And there was a time when Immortal Hulk was awesome. Like, way better than anything going out there. In fact, I would say that eventually Daredevil replaces Immortal Hulk once it gets up to about issue number 20 as the best series in comic books. But Immortal Hulk from issues 1 to 20 is absolutely sterling stuff. Marvel Comics tried to make Al Ewing a thing, and they tried to treat him like an A-lister. It's just unfortunate nothing else has ever caught on that he's done. His Venom kind of has some sales, but the story absolutely sucks. His Sword series had potential, but it never actually got there. They rebooted as X-Men Red. I don't believe the sales really are there either. And it's Al Ewing. He's a guy that maybe could have been somebody, but he had one great story to tell, and that was Immortal Hulk. And he's had some other stuff, especially within the cosmic universe itself. That being said, Immortal Thor kind of makes sense doing a Thor series. As I said, the best work Al Ewing's probably ever done are like cosmic stories at Marvel outside of Immortal Hulk. I hate it when a writer gets slain with like a gimmick, like, oh, you're the immortal title guy now. Immortal Hulk, Immortal Thor. I wish they could have just come up with a better name, but you know, it sucks that Donny Cates doesn't get to finish what he started with Thor, because it really felt like he was building to something that was going to be spectacular, that was going to be really, really big, kind of like King in Black with Venom, but probably even better than that. But obviously he's taking some time away, so they're having to take the Thor character and obviously the Hulk characters in different directions. Phil Kennedy Johnson's going to be writing Hulk. That one could be interesting. I think Philip Kennedy Johnson does better on fantasy stories for the most part. So we'll see what he's able to do with a character like Hulk. But if I had a choice, if you're like, Wes, which series is going to be worth your money? Is it going to be the Hulk series from Phil Kennedy Johnson or Immortal Thor from Al Ewing? I have a feeling Immortal Thor will probably be better. Because on his best day, I still think Al Ewing is a better writer than Phil Kennedy Johnson. Although it is pretty close, and I do think the best years are in front of Phil Kennedy Johnson, where they're definitely not for Al Ewing. So I think in the here and now, Immortal Thor will probably be the better series, but I'm definitely going to check them both out. I'm definitely curious where they go with those, but obviously the big news was they're shutting Daredevil down. We knew that one. They're relaunching it with Saladin Ahmed. There's never been a bigger downgrade in talent in the history of comic books. That's probably a really hyperbolic statement, but that's how I'm feeling right now. It's just, what a bummer. I love Daredevil, and that series is just going to suck. Normally, throughout history, Daredevil's actually been treated quite kindly and had a lot of really good writers do some of their best stuff. Like, I personally think the best thing Frank Miller ever wrote was his Daredevil series. In fact, I had a conversation about it with my good friend Joe Corallo, comic book writer and editor, talking about how great Daredevil has been over the years. If you haven't seen this and you love the character, definitely check it out right now. There's also a link in the video description.